Hi, Rebekah. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me on the podcast. This is an honor.
Yes. So tell me a little bit of how you've gotten related to just military life in general.
So, how I have been involved with military life is I was a civilian that went to Iraq in 2006 for 3 months, and we were supporting both the military and the State Department in a civilian role. And since then, it has always been a passion of mine to support those that are willing to give the ultimate sacrifice and sign up to support our country.
Yeah. And that's really special to have, those people who are willing to support, to have not just say thank you, but to actually give in other ways as well. So we've been connected for 10 years now, about like tons of time now, and through the Fisher House and through all these other events that we've been at. So you're working with No Greater Sacrifice. Tell me a little bit of how you got connected with that and how you're helping families in that way.
Yes, so No Greater Sacrifice is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we support children of fallen and severely wounded service members through education and mentorship. And how I got connected with No Greater Sacrifice is one of the founders of No Greater Sacrifice was on a civilian team with me in Iraq, a very small team. And while we were deployed, he and some of his friends that are also civilians were trying to figure out how they best could support children of fallen service members. And they started No Greater Sacrifice to provide college education for children of fallen service members. And then after the post 9/11 GI Bill got passed that provides a Fry Scholarship to every child of a fallen service member, it was obvious that there were children of severely wounded service members that needed support as well, because there was such an advancement in medical medicine on the battlefield that allowed service members to be able to come back home. But that was just the beginning of a very long, as your family is aware, a very long rehabilitation process and just a change in their lives. And so we began supporting children of severely wounded as well. For a while, it was all a volunteer-run organization, and then they were looking for an executive director, and I applied for the job, and I've been blessed to serve in that role for over 10 years now.
Yeah, that's incredible. So what kind of, children are you working with day to day and their families?
So we support now over 260 children of fallen and severely wounded service members, specifically providing scholarships for college education. So No Greater Sacrifice provides a 4-year college scholarship that covers in-state tuition, fees, room, board, and books. So our hope is that a child would be able to go and get their college education debt-free. But we do select children younger as well. And so we have a future youth program where we have really young kids, and then we also have a ton of college students, such as yourself right now, that we support through scholarship, mentorship, and really just wraparound services. So if we know of a family that needs something beyond that, then we would recommend out to other organizations.
Yeah. And No Greater Sacrifice does so much more than just, providing these college scholarships and these educations, like you're saying. There's so much more of a family and a connection that you become a part of once you get the scholarship and you get accepted as well.
Well, I hope you feel that way.
Yes.
It is something that, it kind of organically happens, and I will say we're very customized to what each student and their family might need. So a lot of times we have students that have received more financial aid but might need more on the mentorship, or we have students that are going to a private school that really need us to help customize other scholarships in addition to ours. So I would say we really try to look at the family system and see what that student needs and build a trust there to even, you do have to start with trust to build that trust, to allow these students that have been through a traumatic situation to begin to dream again. and then we try to figure out where there might be a need, or where the biggest needs are, and support in that way.
Yeah. So just all over, kind of, not just in the college kind of realm, but then afterwards as well.
So it's hard to, we really want to stay true to our mission,
Yes.
And do that really well. But once you have become connected, it is like family. And I believe that we're not a transactional organization a lot of times. There are families of ours that, are just transactional and are more in the scholarship realm space. And we provide those scholarships, and there's not as much back and forth. But there are others who have needed something different, or have grown from mentorship. So I would say we do consider our families to be just our gems that we want to continue to pour into in whatever way that we possibly can. So we love following students from being a child to them being in college, and then them living their dreams. So it's really awesome to just be allowed, and we're honored to be a part of that process, and to be allowed into families, and to be able to serve. So it does go a little bit longer than just the college scholarship process.
Yeah. And that's, like you were saying, most scholarships do end up being transactional, and they're just like, come in and you're out, and we're here for when you're in college, and then you're off on your own. And that's what's so special about No Greater Sacrifice, that you're constantly sticking around, like checking up and seeing how these alumni are doing, and keeping in touch, and not being so transactional as some other ones are.
Well, again, we are all about what you need, versus the other way around. And there are some students that have totally that have gotten the college scholarship, and then have gone on and have fulfilled great things, and we're not as in their lives in a close basis, and that's fine too. That's kind of the model, is like, whatever would be best for that student is where we want to come in and be. So it's wonderful when we have the ability to really stay in touch, but also at the same time, we never want people to feel a burden of having to have another thing in which they check. So we really try to keep a pulse of what's helpful to someone, instead of the other way around, because I do think that in the space of just life and trying to be supportive of people, that it can get turned upside down sometimes, where, okay, well, these people were trying to help me, and now I feel a little overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So we just really don't want to be in that space either. Yeah. So we really leave it up to the students a lot of times to lead on how deep they want that relationship to go. And we're also pretty protective of our students, in a way of, just so that everyone can support them, but that they don't ever feel overwhelmed either. Or that it's another box that they have to check, or even, oh my, I've really got to make an A in this class, because if not, then someone's going to think differently of me. That's not our role. We want you to succeed. Clearly, we love great grades, but it's really just to really support you, to allow you to flourish, and be the best that you can be, and reach your dreams, not our dreams. Not your parents' dreams, not anybody else's dreams for you, but really the dreams that you want to accomplish.
Yeah.
So,
and that's really special. Most organizations have, these guidelines that you have to continuously meet. And I'm sure, there are some, but, it's challenging trying to uphold to those standards of, I can't fall behind, I can't slack off. Like, I have to be, in a sense, doing my best, and then doing better than that as well.
Yeah, no, we try to come alongside, and also in places in which, if you've been through a traumatic event like you and your family have, there's extra pressure that's already there.
Yeah.
As well as a lot of our military children have moved several times, have had education interrupted, have had to go to school in a different way than what is typical, and might have missed part even of their learning process as a kid. So one of the things we look at is, okay, how can we help you? Do you need tutoring? Do you need what kind of support do you need to be able to be successful? And we kind of start at that. I mean, we kind of say we provide scholarship, and that scholarship is our foot in the door to be able to see what other ways support is needed to actually be to allow you to be fruitful.
Yeah. And that is like, these kids have been through trauma and, even, sometimes a death in the family, and it's not easy to go through that. And interrupted education, like I moved in the middle of my 4th grade year, and so I had to go completely different curriculums, and that's hard enough as it is. And so having, that support system behind you of, we understand what you've been through. We understand that there's been hurt, there's been trauma, there's been loss. And now let's, help you get to a life that you are going to be happy living.
Right. So we're hoping to really somewhat, if not stop, to help so that the trauma just doesn't continue into another generation.
Yeah.
That's, if you were to really look at what our mission, what our vision, and to look beyond that, it's how can we ensure that this major event that was given in service to our country and the sacrifice that was given, how can we ensure that the next generation doesn't just continue on in that trauma cycle?
Yeah.
To really stop that, allow a student to begin to dream again, and really have a different outcome than continually feeling like the sacrifice just has to continue at every turn. For the families that we support, for the fallen, they've lost a loved one. For our severely wounded, it's a different kind of new normal, and that impacts every single part of their life.
Yeah.
So the trauma that is incurred, the sacrifice that was given, it does impact every area of their lives. And so I know we're only in the education space, but the hope there is to say education can take you to so many different levels. We feel that education is very important. And how can we allow you to live a life in which you're not feeling that impact as significantly on the sacrifice that was given?
And it's that fact that most kids, this incident happens and then they don't have the, even mind space to comprehend what's next, what's coming next, what their hopes and dreams are for the future. And, they're not stuck in this family forever. Well, not stuck. I love my family, but you're not stuck in this family, but you have, you have this life ahead of you. You have your own family to create, and moving forward, and what do you want to do in that? You have to pick up so much in the family dynamic side of it, whether that be helping assist, in my case, my dad who was wounded, helping around, like doing extra house chores and things like that. And you can't always think of what's next. And so having something like a scholarship from No Greater Sacrifice that covers everything, you can actually think of what you want to do instead of thinking how you're even going to pay for college to begin with.
Right. I think one of the important things, and you're bringing such great awareness to this with Grace of a Military Child podcast, is really the caregiving that is being required of children, and that might be a lifelong responsibility that you came into a lot younger than most caregivers would. And I think that's another reason in which we need to ensure that the children of fallen and severely wounded are able to get a college education, or what in college education I'm talking about technical school associates, bachelors, to allow them to get into gainful employment. Because one thing that we know about caregivers is that there's a reduction in the ability to make money and to have a revenue source. And I think it's important that you, as a caregiver, potentially for a lifetime for your family, that you are able to be able to have financial means in which to be able to caregive as well. Is the best way to describe that. When we looked at No Greater Sacrifice, we really did a life cycle diagram that began at the time of impact of the trauma that was occurred, the sacrifice that was given, and what do we see for our students, for our recipients, for our scholars as a life cycle for them. And part of that went into, we realize that you're a caregiver, and we realize that you might be a caregiver for a very, very long time. And so what do you need in order to caregive and to be healthy yourself? And part of that is to be able to make gainful employment. So it's more, when you look, it's a college scholarship, yes it is, mentorship, yes it is, but it is trying to give an opportunity that will allow for you to continue to be able to be giving in the way in which you might have to for the rest of your life.
And it's definitely, it's not an easy life to live, and it's not something we choose. Service members don't go into the military saying, they say, I'm willing to give my life if that's what it calls for, but, you don't really think about that. And then the family doesn't really have a choice on.
You didn't sign up to serve.
Exactly. So, yeah. What would you tell parents of No Greater Sacrifice scholars?
So the parents of No Greater Sacrifice scholars, I would tell them, thank you. They're where it began, that one of the parents, and sometimes both of the parents, did sign up to serve in the U.S. military, which our U.S. military population is 1% of the entire U.S. population that signs up to serve and to be willing to give over their lives, and that it is a total devotion to protecting the United States of America and to protecting all the things that we hold dear. And so I would say thank you would be the first. And I know that a lot of our veterans have a hard time with receiving thanks, and that sometimes thank you sounds a little blasé for what all they were willing to give, but it is a thank you. And then as far as for our scholars, I would say, how can we help you? How can we help you to get your child what they need to be able to be successful? So we're just coming alongside. We don't expect to replace. We don't expect to overstep. And it does begin with how can we be helpful to allow for you to allow your children to be successful, and where can we come alongside where there might be any gaps in that to be a partner in the journey of education for their child.
Yeah, and that's really special to know that you're here for the scholars and the recipients, and not just us, but you're here for our families, and you realize what we've gone through, what we've been through, even though most of the board hasn't even experienced that. But
yeah, it's very interesting. Our No Greater Sacrifice board, and those that are really our supporters, a lot of them are not military service members, so it really began as a civilian effort to give back.
Yeah.
And while we know that there are things that we don't understand, since we are not military families, and we depend on a lot of times people to tell us our guardrails left and right on what is best. I think it's really awesome that there have been civilian folks that have been willing to step up and say, what can we do because we aren't serving? And how can we give back? And it's just incredible to see that civilian and military connection, because as I said, 1% serves in the military, 99% do not. Now I will say we do also have a lot of military that support us, or former military, and that is wonderful, and is just a source of strength for all of us, I believe. I remember we were at one gala, and probably the most powerful donation that I received was from a service member, a soldier that was rehabilitating at Walter Reed, and he gave $20. And I always come back to that donation as a source of just incredibleness, because our military service members never really stop giving, and believe in service and what what can they give back? And it's just incredible. Our U.S. military, the families of our U.S. military, just an incredible amount of willing to give of service to the nation that a lot of us in a civilian capacity, it's really awe-inspiring.
Yeah. And even that $20, like, you know, it says a lot of our military of, you know, like you said, all-time service, like still serving even, you know, while rehabbing, while in rehabilitation, while, you know, they might not be able to serve in the military again, but they can still help and continue, you know, some sort of service in impacting military families.
Absolutely. And I would say one of the ways that I've seen that is I've never made a call into a military family in which I was asking for if they could help me to understand something or help me. There's a lot of spouses that don't take any money for it, that just generally give of their time to help out other families and to make them connected. I know your mom's done a lot of that, to connect people into other resources. And we're all in this life together, and so making those connections and making those, I just love how close-knit the military community can be to support each other.
Yeah, the military is one big happy family. Like, anything, you know, another member needs, it's like we're there. And even, you know, it branches out into their families, and, you know, all of that. We're just a big family.
It's incredible. And I do think one of the things that No Greater Sacrifice helps to provide at times, when we're able to, are connection points between scholars.
Yeah.
And we do look to do a lot more of that in between families, because it can be a little isolating. There's not that many that are in your local community potentially that have gone through something like you have. So to be able to bring people together has always been, it's been incredibly powerful when it's happened. I believe for our scholars to get to meet other scholars that have been through similar life-changing events.
Yeah, and it's hard when you're in some place like Walter Reed or BAMC where you're surrounded by these people, and then once, you know, you retire, there has to come a point where you retire and move on. And once you get that, you're like, okay, I know these people are still out there, but I don't see them because they're not in my area.
Right. And I do think one of the things to make note of that is now that we're in 2021, and so we specifically serve the post 9/11 conflicts, the children of fallen and severely wounded from those post 9/11 conflicts. And as those have begun to stop, or, you know, we're supposed to be pulling out of Afghanistan, it's hard for, I think, everyday Americans to realize that this sacrifice that was given, and that it has continued, and that it is a journey, and that our military children, our children of fallen and severely wounded, are now at college age.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of the awareness, and I love what you're doing with the Graces of the Military Child, is to just continue to show the awareness of our military children, that while the casualty might have happened some years ago, that the support is still needed today as it was then, and maybe in a different look into that, like the college education of their children, but that we cannot ever forget about the sacrifice that our military is willing to give and has given. And that as Americans, I think America is a grateful nation. I will say, looking out globally and seeing other countries, I do think that we have given more to our service members, to our military, to their families, but always more can be given. And so I appreciate what every donor comes through, but we still have to make people aware, because military life doesn't impact on a day-to-day on so many Americans. And I think that you're bringing awareness to this population is just critically important.
Yeah. And that's one reason I started the podcast, is having that awareness. And, you know, families are important just as much as the service member, and, you know, even the spouses don't get fully recognized, and the children do not at all. It's hard to watch, you know, people who I was friends with struggle and, potentially even commit suicide because of their struggles. It's not easy to, deal with that and live with the fact that these children are struggling just as much as, the service member might be struggling as well.
That's right. Yeah. Awareness is definitely needed. And I think our military families are very humble.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times can be overlooked. I appreciate you saying that, because even though I'm in this space, to hear you say, I know children are struggling, I know mental health is critically important to our military families, and we need more support around that. It still hits me that there are children that are suicidal, that have massive struggles due to the circumstances.
Yeah, they do, for sure. What do you want people to know about No Greater Sacrifice?
I would like people to know that No Greater Sacrifice is here to support children such as yourself and your sister Kaylee, and other children of fallen and severely wounded service members, and that if they want to find a place to give back to families such as yours, to please contact me at No Greater Sacrifice. You can look at our website, www.nogreatersacrifice.org. Reach out directly, and if they want to come along inside and help in any way, we are very open to that. But what I would also say is to all the military children that are out there, that please reach out and ask for support. We can only support so many. We are a smaller organization, and we do focus specifically on children of the fallen and children of the severely wounded. But there are other military organizations that are out there that support various populations within the military children population, and to really try to plug in and find out ways in which, if they need support, that they can get that support. Because it's hard sometimes for our military families to reach out for support due to that humbleness, due to that I hear over and over again, yes, this happened to me, yes, this was a traumatic event, from the service member usually, but we would do it all over again.
Mm-hmm.